dog is snoring so loud, I had to kick him out of the room. It's bad enough that I have to battle the wind that's going on outside, and I have pocket windows, so they rattle a lot, and I'm so sorry if you can hear that. But my dog is snoring. I have a choice. I have a choice to let you listen to my dog snoring or not.
Hi friends, hi, hello, how are you today? I hope that today finds you well. Today we're going to be doing the next review of the palettes in my collection, palettes you might also have in your collection. I call it palette roulette, but it really is just about reviewing the palettes in my collection, new or old. I'm showing you some looks that I come up with, utilizing that palette, tell you about my experiences with that palette over the last week. It is the only palette that I use for a week at a time, and then we pick a new palette and I do it all over again next week. I'm here for you every single Monday doing this, and if that sounds like something you're interested in, please keep watching, but also please click on that subscribe button because I do it every single week. This is number 133. I know that there were a couple of videos that I did like more than one palette, so there's bound to be something in this palette roulette series that is in your collection that you could go look at, that you could watch my review, see the looks that I came up with, give yourself some inspiration. I do hope that you find something that you're looking for. For those of you new here, hi, my name is Donna. So happy to meet you. I'm so happy to have you here today. So happy that you found me. I hope that you will find that I am kind of a kick in the pants. You're going to want to stick around, but I'm also a lady of a certain age that's out here doing the things that everybody is telling me I shouldn't be doing because I'm too darn old for that. And I am here to tell you, let's lock arms. Let's do it together. Let me be your person. Let's be buddies. Let's walk through this life together. You'll definitely want to subscribe before you go. With that being said, let's roll into it. Today's palette is the NATASHA DENONA CIRCO LOCO palette. And you know, you guys, I think you'll be surprised about this review. Just saying. So this is the NATASHA DENONA CIRCO LOCO palette. It is a palette that is of the $129 price point. It does come in at 5 stars on NATASHA DENONA. There is only one review on her website. It is a very new palette. It just launched fairly recently. On Beautylish, it also has 5 stars. It has 6 reviews that make up that 5 stars. On Sephora, it has 4.9 stars, and it does have 41 reviews. And then the Google review factor is 4.9 stars with 62 reviews. So there really just isn't a whole lot of reviews out there for the general public who just might be looking it up unless they are watching a YouTube video. I'm hoping that I can get mine out here quick enough, but after writing all of my notes, I think that for the most part, the reviewers that I trust really said the same thing that I'm going to be saying to you. This is what the packaging of the palette looks like. It was limited edition and inspired by the characters of the circus. It consists of 3 main color stories, so it does have a fairly large mirror, and then it has the 3 main color stories in here, which are pinks, oranges, and blues with purples sprinkled throughout. The pans do pop out. Most of NATASHA DENONA's palettes do this. You can pop these pans out and put them into a magnetic palette. These ones fit perfectly into her like $48 full-size 5-pan eyeshadow palettes, which is perfection because this palette is to be used really in rows of 5. I'm not even showing you the palette. I'm sorry about that. Really in rows of 5. So this row, or this row are the perfect color story in NATASHA DENONA's mind. Vertically in 3-pan palettes. Horizontally, that's not horizontal, diagonally in 3-pan palettes or in quads. And that's really how she built a lot of her palettes to be, so that you don't really have to think, even though when you look at this palette you might feel a little bit overwhelmed because of all of the straight up color that's in here. You don't really have to think about it because NATASHA has built these palettes to suit those who maybe have that overwhelming thought process in their head when they look at a palette like this. It doesn't really affect me much because I do bounce around in my palettes. I do what I want. I think I said that at the beginning. I do what I want on my eyes. So with that said, this is $129. It does have 1.2 ounces of product in it, and that means that each one of the pans in here is 0.08 ounces of product. And I have gone over this before because that means that each one of these shadows in here is just about the same price per ounce as a ColourPop eyeshadow. So you're getting quite a bit larger pan of eyeshadow for really the same kind of price. So a lot of people like really dig into the fact that her eyeshadow palettes cost $129 for the full-size version, but honestly, you're getting better quality for roughly price per ounce, same price. I do, however, because of the color story of this, and just because I like the size of the NATASHA DENONA middies better, I do wish that this had been a midi. I do think it would have been more attractive to the general public if it were a midi. It might even be more attractive to those that really aren't looking for a palette full of crazy colors if it were in a midi size, because those do come in at $65 versus the $129, and you're not really going to go through the size of pan as quickly as you should for this formulation, right? This has 15 eyeshadows, obviously, 4 formulas in it. There is the creamy mattes, of course, the cream to powder formula is in here, metallic is in here, and then there is a new like formula code that I don't think I've ever seen in her shadow palettes before. Maybe I'm just not paying attention super great. That is not unheard of. That is SM, and I do think that these are sparkly metallics, and I know that sounds redundant, but her metallics, some of them come off a little bit more like a satin than they do a metallic, honestly, just a really shimmery satin. These ones don't do that. These ones are also the ones in the palette that do have a little bit more of an oomph, and they also are the ones in the palette that look like they could shift another way. Not a duochrome, but look like the one on my lid currently is Aerialist, and it is one of the ones that has that SM job code, not at work. It is one of the ones that has the SM formula code, and I feel like it could look blue with the teals, and it looks purple or lavender with the purples, and it just has a little bit of a shiftiness to it that is unexpected. And I feel the same way with the Razzle Dazzle shade, which is the pink shade up here. This is the other SM. It sways very purple or blue or pink depending on what you're pairing it with, and I think that that is the SM is maybe it means shifting metallic without calling it a duochrome. Maybe it means sparkle metallic. I'm not sure. I'm a Natasha Denona stan, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a Natasha Denona knows everything about Natasha Denona. I know a lot about Natasha Denona, but I don't know everything. So, you know, probably a better person to watch about that would be Natasha Denona. But every single video I went on to trying to figure out what this SM code was, I could not find it anywhere. So there's that. It is cruelty free, it is allergen free, and it contains carmine. So that makes it not a vegan formula. What I found was interesting was, and I hate calling this out, but I am, if nothing else, a truthful reviewer. The front of the, you know, information on the Natasha Denona website for this palette says that it is talc free, as stated here. However, as stated here and here, you can see that talc is the first ingredient in a lot of these shadows. So if you are, you know, talc sensitive, this might not be the palette for you. And I would definitely, this is the first time I've noticed that, but honestly, I'm not talc sensitive, so I haven't really dug into that as much ever. I just happened to see it, write it down, and then go into the ingredients to try and figure out what that SM code was, and realize that that was not the case, that many of these shadows do have talc in it. So there's that for you. It is best with primer. I would say best with a tackier primer, like a MAC Paint Pot kind of primer, or more emollient, I guess I should say, not tacky. I did use it with the ABH eyeshadow primer that I have that dries down. It's very white based. I thought this is perfect because we're going to be able to see the actual, you know, the true tone of the color on my eyes if I'm using a white base. These don't really require white based eyeshadow primers. None of Natasha Denona's do. I think that they're super pigmented, super blendable for the most part, but they do not perform as well on a dry eyeshadow primer as they do on a more emollient or creamy eyeshadow primer. So like I said, like a MAC Paint Pot eyeshadow primer, or like the one that I used is called Stuck on You by the Cream Shop, I think. Definitely not along the lines of a Primer Potion or an ABH eyeshadow primer. Those are just a little bit too dry in my opinion for this to work as best as it can. The longevity is definitely an easy 10 hours. And I say an easy 10 hours because I had a really beautiful blue look on my eyes the other day, and I put that eye look on my eyes around 7 o'clock in the morning, and I did not take that eye look off until like midnight. So that lasted on my eyes for 16 plus hours, and it looked almost as good as it did when I put it on in the morning. There was a teeny bit of fading on the outskirts of the eye look, and I had used this light blue shade on the outskirts of the eye look. Teeny bit of fading with that shade, but the rest of the eye looked perfection, honestly. There is quite a bit of staining that occurs with some of the shades in this palette. This dark like blue green shade here, this purple shade here, this blue shade here, and then this pink shade here. There's quite a bit of staining with those. I didn't notice it as much with this shade as I did with this shade, which was odd to me because that other pink, that Razzle Dazzle pink, is quite a bit more oomphy than the Joker shade. But I didn't notice it with that one as much as I did the other pink shade. Fallout imminent. You're gonna have so much fallout with this palette. Definitely make sure that you do your eyes first. I find that to be true with a lot of Natasha Denona shadows, honestly, is that there is fallout with them. Some of them more so than others. You definitely see a lot. Not a lot. Not like a whole nother shadow a lot. Not like can't brush it off a lot, but you definitely see fallout with Natasha Denona shadows. That's not a deal breaker for me. I have found that many shadows that I don't find fallout all over my face when I am applying my makeup, I don't really get along with, to be honest. So I'm okay because I do my eyes first. If you're opposed to fallout and it's because you do your face first, my suggestion is just to switch up your routine a little bit. The only problem with that is that you really need to be able to trust the process, because I realized when I started doing my eyes first, your eyes never look the way you want them to until the rest of your face is done. So you really have to trust the process or you can't do your eyes first. But my suggestion is just switch it up. See how you like it. Do it for a couple months, see how you like it, because there are so many great formulations of shadows out there that fall out. So not a deal breaker for me, I think is where I was going with that. The mattes, almost all of them were awesome. Almost all of them were so pigmented. Almost all of them, well, I should say all of them were so pigmented. Almost all of them blended with such ease and didn't really cause any kind of like irritation. Almost all of them perfect. Almost all of them true Natasha Denona mattes. They have the creamy mattes, the cream to powders. The cream to powders are by far my favorite matte formulation for Natasha Denona, and they used to not be. They used to be so awful. I remember a palette back in the day, a little 5-pan palette that I had back in the day that had a cream to powder formula that I ended up like giving away or decluttering, I think, because it just wasn't good. It just wasn't. Her cream to powder formula these days is fantastic. Beautiful formula, so easy to work with. The only matte that I struggled with in this palette is actually the matte all over my eyes today, and it is this purple guy down here. His name is Magic, and he is a beautiful purple. Beautiful, like indigo blue, kind of blue purple tone. I think that's what it is slated as, is a purple blue or a blue purple. It is awful. It's awful. I believe it looks like my eyes are super blended right now and not patchy at all. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I think when you see the close-up of this look, you will see some patchiness. It just doesn't like to blend. It just doesn't like to, you pat it down and barely blend it and it creates voids in the matrix of your eye look. And that isn't amazing since it's such a dark shade. It's hard to correct that once it starts happening. I found that it picked up often. I didn't like working with it at all. The best place for me to use this shadow, honestly, is up here in my hair. I don't know if you guys can see it in my hair right now, but I've got quite a bit of grow out because it's been like 12 weeks since I got my hair done, and I still have like 3 more weeks to wait to get my hair done. My hair grows super fast. This purple, perfect in my hair. Not perfect in my eyes. On my eyes. In my eye looks, yeah. Perfect in my hair though. So there's that. I hated it. I hated working with it. I did it twice. One day, I think you'll see pictures, 2 pictures from the same day I'm in the same shirt. And it's because, not because I hated the eye look, because I absolutely loved the first eye look I did, but I had, you know, this orange, this pink, and this purple in the eye look, and that purple completely destroyed the eye look. Like I could not get it to just pack down on the lid and blend out the edges. And I didn't want a stark line. Who wants that 90% of the time? Not me. So I took the eye look off. I took a picture of it. I took the eye look off. The shimmers, the metallics, chef's kiss. Her metallics are always stellar. And you want to know something? Here's what I've noticed. I quit wetting the eyeshadows on my lid ever. I can't do it anymore. And the reason why is because what I'm finding is when I spray my metallics or shimmers or whatever with a setting spray, my eyeball waters so much more than it watered. I mean, there's no watering going on with my wonky eye today, which is shocking. But the first day I was using the shimmers in this palette, and Natasha Denona doesn't typically do this to my eyes, so I think it's about the setting spray. I got them right up close into my inner corner and then started blending them out, and I had sprayed them, and it just came right off because my eye was watering so bad. So that's for another day. I didn't have any irritation with these. I didn't see a whole lot of fallout with these once they were on my eye. They stayed on my eye. They didn't like drift throughout the day. They didn't like, you know, fall out all over my face throughout the day. And that's pretty standard for a Natasha Denona metallic shadow. These two here, there's something special about these two here. They are that SM formula. I think they have just a little kick more of sparkle to them than the other ones. This one, I don't even know why this one is in this palette. Number one, you have this one here, which is much shinier, much prettier, and kind of the same tone, even though it's more of like a copper. It shows up almost exactly the same on the eye, except for that it's sparklier. And then you have this matte, so it's not like it's trying to be a matte out here, because this is a matte, it's the same damn color. So I'm not really sure why we have this orange in here, and it is the most lackluster of the metallics in this palette. This one here, stunning. This is so, so pretty. Such a pretty like aqua blue color. I will of course swatch them for you, but I just wanted to let you know that there was absolutely no creasing with these. Many of them blended into the crease and could perform crease work just as a matte would, and I think that a lot of that is because many of them were a little more on the lackluster side, more like satiny versus more like shimmery, but that orange one was the worst. All of them performed magically. All of them were so, so pretty. Let's do some swatches. I'm just going to go first row, second row, third row, and we will go from there. This is the first row. So the first shade we have here is this one. It is called Firework. I'm sorry. It is a vibrant orange matte, and this is of the creamy matte formula, so it is so wonderful to work with. Then we have this one here, which is called Razzle Dazzle. This is the vibrant fuchsia metallic. It does have a little bit of the blue to purple like shiftiness to it, and this is one of those metallics that has that SM code, so I'm just not really sure what that S stands for, but it is a metallic shade. Then we have this one here, which is called Acrobat. It is a tea leaf blue creamed powder. It does have more of a blueness to it than it does a tealiness to it, but it is a beautiful shade on your eyes, and especially next to this one, which is called Snow Cone, and it is a frosty sky blue metallic that is just so pretty. I loved the eye look that I did with those two colors, and then the lighter like teal, like almost baby blue teal cotton candy eyeballs. And then you have this one here, which is called Cotton Candy, and it is a cool toned pastel pink matte, and you can see how wonderfully pigmented that pastel pink is. It is in my eye look today towards the top of my brow bone and also underneath in my eye and my under eye. These two fingers were the Acrobat blue and the Snow Cone blue, so that really does stain. But this one was that Razzle Dazzle shade, and I mean, it does appear to have a little pinkiness to it, but it doesn't, everything is just kind of like hanging out on my fingers, so you are going to get some staining with this palette. This is the second row. The first shade is Electric, and it is just that, just a so royal blue metallic. Such a beautiful shade. And then we have this one, which is called Grin. It is a really yellow gold metallic. I found it worked really well in the orange eye look that you'll see in pictures in the inner corner area. It's such a beautiful gold shade, and y'all know I don't like golds. It really pops on the eye like a yellow does and not like a gold. I know there's not a whole lot of difference, but in my mind there is, so just walk with me, okay? The next one is this one, which is called Cannon, and it is a vibrant bronze metallic. But I really do find that it works really well in an orange eye look over the top of the orange metallic that you think is going to be amazing that's just not. There's that. So then we have this one, which is called Flip, and it is your teal in the palette. It does go really well with this darker one that you think is a teal but isn't. You can see a difference in the two colors on your eyes. I do think it is a beautiful, beautiful tone, and this one is also a metallic, but it's one of those almost satiny metallics. It does have a little bit of a shine to it, but it's not shiny to the extent that you can't like blend it into your crease and get away with it. Then we have this shade here, which is called Fun to Mime, and this is a like just really pastel baby blue, beautiful creamed powder formulation. So fun to work with this shade. Super, super pigmented in an eye look. It's just, I just found it so, so beautiful. I can see, however, these two lighter shades maybe being a little bit ashy on a much deeper skin tone than mine. Like if you do have a deeper skin tone than mine, that might be like two shades that you could like pop into your inner corner, but I don't know that you'll be able to use them a whole lot in an eye look without them looking ashy. With that said, Fun to Mime, the blue one, is very pigmented when you're just like packing it on, and without blending it out, it could look amazing. This is the last 5 shades in the palette. This is the bottom row. So the first one we have here is the orange that I told you all was probably the least favorite metallic in the palette, and that one is called Spiral. So it's an orange metallic. It's very ho-hum. It's not super pretty. Then and it doesn't really create impact in your eye look, which I find that a lot of Natasha Denona shadows do. So the next one I have is this one, and that is the purple that I told you was awful to work with, and look at how beautifully it swatched. It truly is awful to work with though. It swatches beautifully, and this is why you should not trust just swatches. This is the color that I wanted it to be on my eyes. This is why I continue to pack it onto my eyes. It is considered a purple blue, and it is the creamy matte formula. It was just so hard to work with. I have so many much better formulations of this shade of purple in my collection. I could get rid of that shade and the orange, these two shades in this palette, and be perfectly fine. Then we have this one, which is the one in my eye look. This is Aerialist. This is a frosty pastel lavender metallic, and it does have that SM formulation. It is so pretty. I mean, you can see there, it looks very silver. In my eye look, I feel like it looks very lavender. With the blue, you know, the Acrobat shade, this guy here, or this guy here, it looks very like almost baby blue in an eye look. It's just so pretty. And if you look at it, you can see it's kind of got this like pinkiness to it and gold fleckiness to it that I think lend to that whole thought process that its colors just don't stay. It's shifty. It just is. All right. Then we have this one here, which is a metallic, a violet metallic. And I found that I would pack this one over the top of the matte just to get the matte to show up the way I wanted to. As a matter of fact, it is packed down to the outer corner of this eye look just to get that purple to not look patchy. And then last but not least is this shade here, and it is called Joker. If I'm honest, this is, besides that pink shade there and that shade there, this is my least favorite row in this palette, and you wouldn't think so because I love purples and pinks. I wish that that purple matte didn't exist or was a better formulation, and I wish that the purple metallic was a little more oomphy, and I wish the orange metallic had been replaced by a different shade metallic or even another matte, because there are only 5 mattes in this palette. So even a dark blue matte or a true teal matte, maybe. I do think that they all performed, you know, fairly well, but can you see just the lacklusterness of that orange metallic there? I just can't. The purple matte is so hard to work with. I would say this is a great palette for those of us that like to work with color on a daily basis, that don't care if we have browns and midtones in our eye look, that use hashtag purple as a transition or pink as a transition, or, you know, who are always using color more than they're using neutrals. This is a perfect palette for you because you probably will get some really great looks out of this, and you probably will get some really great usage out of this. These two are going to be your lightest 2 shades in the palette to use in your crease if you demand a crease color for your eyeshadow application. And I don't think either one of these is a great crease tone if that's what you're going after, you know, for building and for whatnot. I do think that they're great for blending out shades. I don't think they're great for packing into the crease to allow other shades to pack on top of. I just don't think that that's what they're built for. I don't think that that's what this palette is built for. So with that said, if you are a person who enjoys color in your eye looks and isn't just using color as a pop of color on the lid, this is a great palette for you. If you are a person that uses mostly neutrals or mid-tones and doesn't really go for a pop of color except for on the lid, this is not your palette. And this is not your palette because this is huge. And this is $129 for a palette that would be a complementary palette to other palettes in your collection. For a person like me who uses color and only color for the most part in every single one of my eye looks, I would say that this is a perfect palette for me because I use purple as a transition. I use pinks as a transition. I use bright oranges as a transition. I hardly ever use these kind of shades over here, and I definitely don't need a lighter color to put into my crease. This is up my alley. If you use pop of color shadows, this isn't going to be the palette for you. And I would honestly, I have a lot of Natasha Denona. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know that I'm a junkie when it comes to Natasha Denona. This isn't the palette I would suggest. If you want a colored palette, you know, and you don't want to spend $129, number one, but what is it that's drawing you in, right? Is it the greens? The greens? Because if it's the greens, like, you can get a lot of similar like teals in the gold palette. If it's the pinks and purples, you can get some really beautiful, and the gold palette is going to be the same price point, to be honest, but it's also going to have those neutrals that if you're liking the greens for that pop of green on your lid, that's going to be your palette. If you're interested in the pinks and purples, Then there's the Love palette. The Love palette is beautiful, and it's a midi size, so it's only $65. If you're into the oranges and the yellows and the pinks, maybe even the purple, I think there's a purple in this palette, the Sunset palette. Oh my god, that is one of my favorites. And it's a midi palette, $65. I just don't know that this is the palette that I would suggest to anybody who isn't wearing these kind of colors in every aspect of their eye look on a regular basis. If it's a complimentary palette to you, this palette's not worth it. Do not get me wrong, I love me some NATASHA DENONA, and I almost always come on here and talk you into buying one. Like, that seems to be like it's my job. But this isn't the one I would suggest to my friends who ask me, you know, what eyeshadow formula is your favorite? I can easily say NATASHA DENONA. Which palette would you suggest I get? Well, what do you like? That would be my first question. Probably the last suggestion I would give you is the Circo Loco palette. I think I'm just pissed off at that purple, if I'm honest. Just pissed off at the purple. It's beautiful. I got some really beautiful eye looks out of it. I do love it. I'm glad it's in my collection. It will continue to stay in my collection. I'm never getting rid of this baby, but I know I have better purples. I know I have better purples in the NATASHA DENONA formula in my collection. So there's that. There's that. And at the end of the day, because this palette is the kind of palette it is, I can pop those two shadows out, put two different shadows in, and call it Circo Loco Donna edition. So there's that. All right, we are picking a new palette for next week's palette roulette, and those of you who watch my Shop My Stash, which I will link up here or up here in the cards for you, for those of you that are new and don't watch it, should know what palette is next, but I'm gonna go grab it and I will be right back. All right, friends, this is the next palette in my palette roulette series, and it is the Huda Beauty the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. This is going to be a far cry from the last palette that we just did. I mean, yes, it's got some of the, you know, similar tones to it, but it's also got a lot of like pastels and plain Jane shades in it, which is not something I typically pull for. It wasn't on my radar, mostly because of that middle row there that just looks really sad and uninviting. But like, I have it here, I'm looking at some of the textures in it, and I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to use this. And with that said, also, the reason why the Circo Loco palette and the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde are in my Shop My Stash this week is because this friend of mine and I, we decided that those two palettes would probably partner very well together. So I'm excited to utilize this palette over the next week, come back to you next week, talk to you about this palette. I'm also excited to, somewhere in there, record for you a like get ready with me or something utilizing both palettes at the same time, like seeing how they work together, seeing how they partner, and yeah, coming to you next week and talking to you about my feelings, all the feels on this Mercury Retrograde palette. If that sounds like something that you'd be interested in watching, I do hope that you have subscribed to this channel, but please don't also forget to hit that notification bell. It's going to notify you every single time I upload a video so that you don't miss anything. I would hate for you to hit that subscription button and then have me never show up in your feed. That would be tragic, in my opinion. I also hope that you give me a big thumbs up if you loved this video, because it really does help our channel out there. And if you would like to see more from me, YouTube will be, you know, kind of mentioning some of my videos here in a couple seconds. But with that said, that's it. That's all I have for you cookies, and I do hope that you guys are having an amazing day out there. I hope 2021 is treating you well. I hope June, can you even believe it, is treating you well. I hope you and yours are healthy. I hope you all are staying safe out there, and I hope that you're loving each other, but loving each other from afar. And until next time, bye friends.